All right, let's take a look at the Storyteller's kit, and I created this, so who better than to talk about all the possibilities that can come from it. And I'm now starting to discover that even the term Storyteller's kit is limiting, I think, a little bit in the scope of what is possible here, because it's got so many features, and all of them just driven by a simple property list file, that at this point you could even just create an application that does nothing more than allows people to buy a particular product. If that product were a video, you could stream it from your website, and so it's in a sense it could be just a video purchase utility now. So anyway, let me steer you guys really quick to the Storyteller's Kit website, or my website with the Storyteller's Kit page already open. And the reason I'm showing this to you is because not all of you might have come through the same channels to discover the kit, and I do want to point out that the video documentation is in some sense maybe even the lesser documentation here, because there is an entire 70 or 80 page documentation book already out there. This is in the iBook store, and you can download it, of course, directly from the website in a couple formats here. PDF file, that would be for your Kindle, your Android devices, even your iPhone. If you do happen to have an iPad, I'd go for the multi-touch ebook version, which was developed using iBook Author. So essentially it's an iBook format. It's available in the iBook store. You can also download it directly from my website because it is a free file. So if your country doesn't support the iBook store yet, this would be the way to go about getting that. And one of the things I'm going to do in this video is show you guys the Build a Vehicle activity book that I'm working on as a kind of deluxe demonstration of the file. So you can go ahead or the kit, I should say. So you can go ahead and also check out this application if you do have an iPad. And the kit is for both the iPad or iPhone. And as you can see, actually from this picture right here, one file can program or fuel both of them, I should say. But just in my demonstrations, I've just made it an iPad only kit, because to do the extra images for the iPhone obviously takes a little bit more work, and I just don't have unlimited time, do I? So anyway, let's start looking at that kit, and that'll give you a good idea of what's possible with this. And then what we'll do is we'll talk about the deliverables that you'll get when you purchase the product, and we'll go through each of these folders. And then in future videos, what I'll do is I'll actually drill down and talk about the property list itself, and the values that you put in there to basically drive this entire kit without having to do any programming on your own. So here is the iPhone or iOS simulator. It's not really the preferred way of testing an app. Your best way of testing an app is always going to be on the device, because it runs quicker, and occasionally you get these weird things that happen in the simulator, like an image might not update even after you've replaced it. If you do run into that issue, it usually helps to delete the app on the simulator itself and then just rebuild. But in terms of, well, for screencasting, it's much better for me to show you guys the simulator than try to film me messing around on an iPad. So anyway, you're looking at the cover page of the book that is in the store, and actually the version that's in the store right now doesn't have this nice menu in here yet, but I'll submit a version of it soon with this in there. And what you're seeing is a nice little slide out menu. This is something new to version 1.6 of the kit, and also new are product dependent images, and by that I mean that a particular product has to be purchased in order to show that image. And of course, you know, it makes sense to use that in a menu to drive people to a certain place. So for example, if I were to click on this right now, it's going to send me to a page to buy product 1. Otherwise, if product 1 had already been bought, then you just go directly to that particular section with this particular vehicle. But that is somewhat limiting in the scope of what you can do with the product dependent images. So for example, if you had a story or an app about a medieval knight and you just wanted to sell golden armor, you could do that. All right, so your product could be every page the knight has golden armor on. All right, so then on every one of your pages, you would just specify that if product 1 has been purchased, you show the image with the golden armor instead. And of course, we'll talk about that later on in the kit, but just think about that. And I'll just point out too that this is a button that just opens up actually that same page we're looking at on the website. This is a Facebook button. This is also new to version 1.6. And well, I didn't give you enough time to look at that really. This is the simulator is just telling me my Facebook account isn't loaded up. But what this would do is obviously create a Facebook window, and you can pre-fill in the message that you would like people to promote your application with on Facebook. Of course, they can delete that. You can also put in here a link as well. This is a nice little thing that Apple has done. You can build your own links by just putting in applestore.com and then taking out the spaces from the name of your app, and it should jump to your particular app. And then also you can include in a promotional image. All right, so this image right here has been added as a resource to the app, and that'll get posted to people's Facebook walls as well. Of course, it all depends on them actually clicking this button and deciding that they want to help you out by promoting your app. And then there's a tweet button as well. Okay, same exact thing. For some reason with Twitter though, you don't actually see the link, but there is a link attached to this as well. And then as a parent, I like apps that give you this option to click away the Facebook and Twitter buttons. So I just did that as well in my particular app to inspire other developers, because it's not always that fun to have your kid post up like 20 messages about them liking a particular app. It makes you look weird. So anyway, let's send a page forward here. That page flip is just one of many transitions you can include to jump around or navigate through the book. And so all I'm doing right here is putting together kind of snap to stickers. All right, so versus just a free-for-all where I can just put these items anywhere. These ones, if you get to a certain location, will snap and kind of float toward their particular target. And then another kind of recent thing to the kit is what I call listeners. And so this is listening out for the completion of the puzzle, and when that happens you see this nice particle effect show up here, and also an image. And just another thing that you can do is put in images that follow the touch. All right, kids love this. My kids love it. They love finishing a puzzle and then just moving around this metal here and having these stars pop out. And from that point on, it's just a lot of these put together sticker pages. Unfortunately, I need to go and republish this with the app bot to show you. Oh, actually, you know what? I can show you the puzzle if I just click forward a little bit. So let me just fill this in. What I noticed watching my 2-year-old play with an app is that if I put in these menus, or if I put in the option to click really fast repeatedly through pages, he'll do that. But if I kind of slow him down by stalling the appearance of an image, it makes him kind of consider going through the page a little bit more slowly too. So that's why I have these arrows coming down a little bit slower. Here we go. So here's a good example of a puzzle page. And it took me a little work to get the puzzle together, but to actually create the art for the puzzle. So anyway, this is just another example of something that you can do with the app. Kids love puzzle apps, and you know what? As a parent, I kind of love paying for puzzles because, I don't buy enough of the real puzzles, and I'm frequently annoyed by having to pick up 30 pieces on the ground. So I like a virtual puzzle. All right, so let's close this out and talk about the actual demonstration file that comes with the kit, which is very similar actually to what you just saw. So let's go ahead and open up this folder, and what I'll do is I'll give you guys kind of a demonstration while also looking at the property list file for this particular demo project. Open up the Xcode project. Xcode is a free Mac application. It's a big one, but it's a good one and an essential one if you need it. If you're going to be developing with this particular kit, you can get it from the Mac App Store by just looking up Xcode. Once you have that installed, go ahead and open up the Xcode project. And what you'll probably see is something like this. You might not see this right away, but what you'll do is go over here to your book setup.plist file. Of course, that stands for property list, and this is the magic file that fuels everything. So anything you see inside of the app, or that you just saw running on my demo app, is there because of values inside of this property list. And the nice thing is for 99.9% of the time, you don't have to do anything on this side. All you got to do is enter in values over here. Okay, and let's just take a look at the first 4 values on here, because these are really easy ones to comprehend. Every app has a startup image or an intro image, and it's basically just most people use it as like a studio credit to show who the developer was for the application. And in this case, I'm just using intro_image.png, and that's a file that I've imported as a resource to the kit. All right, this is going to be shown for 2 seconds, and then it's going to use this intro image transition, which is the page flip forward, so it's just going to appear like the page is flipping forward, and that transition is going to occur for 2 seconds. All right, so 2 and 2 here. These could be any numbers that you want. I just think it looks good for 2 seconds to be there, and then 2 seconds to transition off. Now, things like this transition, how do you know what to put in here? Well, that's why we have the documentation that I've created, and of course these videos. But in these videos, I'm not going to go through every possible value. So definitely download the documentation. You'll see things like, I'll just show you guys a page right here. These are some of the other possible values you can put in here, and that's even kind of a short version of what those values are. I talk about them in detail in the documentation and how they appear. A page flip forward is exactly what it is, though. Just it appears like a page flipping forward. All right, so let's look at it in action, and then we'll talk about what you have to do to import in that image. So here we go. I'm going to open up the kit on the simulator. There's that intro image. All right, now you're going to see it appears like a page flipping forward, and then you see all this other stuff that comes down here, like the particles. The sword fell down and kind of rotated slightly into place. You see that little sparkle right there. This is fading in and out. All these are separate images, and they are all defined on a per page basis inside of our pages array. And then drilling down further into that, you would see each one of those images. We're not going to talk about that right now, though. We'll talk about that in a video specific to the pages array, essentially. What I wanted to keep discussing is just the basics here to get you guys started, and you probably don't know how to import in an image yet. So what I think the best thing to do is to go and double click inside of here. All right, so inside of your Storytellers Kit folder, and I'll do that one more time. All right, there's the Xcode project, there's just the main folder, and then go and find the resources folder. All right, I prefer not to put images inside of here, all right, even though I might mistakenly do it occasionally. This is best for just classes and your property list file, just from an organizational standpoint. And so then double click inside of your resources, and then this is where I put videos, PNG files, what else do we have in here? MP3 files. So anything like that, I tuck inside of here. And let's go, just as an example, let's go find our intro image. And let's see. It is right there. Okay. Intro image .png. So I would copy it into here, and then what I would do, if I hadn't already imported this, is drag it in over here, and then be sure that this is toggled on, even though it won't apply, and then add to targets is toggled on. Okay, if you don't add to targets, it's almost like you're not even adding it to this kit. So be sure that both of those are toggled on. You don't really have to worry about that. I'm just going to go ahead and hit cancel on that because I don't need to re-import that same file. And then from there, it'll end up in your resources folder. All right, I did copy it to here, in theory. And from there, what you could do is you could go and create a new group, which is essentially a new little subfolder inside of here. It won't actually create a folder inside of your resources in your Finder, but just for organization purposes, I like to do that. And obviously, you can see I put in here a lot of different groups. Okay, now I'm sure all of you are going to support the Retina display devices, the iPad HD, or I'm sorry, the iPad 2 and higher have a Retina display. The iPad Mini currently does not have a Retina display. I'm sure it will one day. And as we all know, everything from the iPhone 4 up is a Retina-enabled device. Now, the nice thing about this kit is that to support those Retina display devices, all you have to do is add in an alternate image with the extension dash iPad HD. That would be for the iPad HD, right? And this image will get used instead of this one right here. All right, so the code itself is just going to go and check. All right, does that exist? If it does, we're going to show that one. If it doesn't, we're going to end up showing this one. Okay, and depending on which devices you're going to support, which we'll talk about in just that in a moment too, you'll want to put in more alternate images. Okay, so the wide HD is going to be your iPhone 5, all right, with the wider screen, and then your dash HD, that would just be for your iPhone 4, your iPod Touches that support Retina. And then you can also put in here a just dash iPad, which would be for the iPad 1 or the iPad Mini. Now, in my particular project here, I only need this file and this file, okay, because mostly because it's only an iPad app. All right, so let's go ahead and click over here and just show you guys that I've set the devices to only be iPad. Now, the other options here would be universal or iPhone only. So you can just think of this as iPad only or iPhone only. All right. So that means that I don't have to worry about putting in images for the iPhone or the iPhone wide. All right. And I don't have to worry about doing just a dash iPad extension, because if this is iPad only, it'll first check to see if it can use the iPad HD image, and then if it can't use that one, all right, then it's just going to default to this base file name right here. Now, in terms of the property list, all you're ever going to do is put in the base file name. Okay, so you can see that for my intro image, I didn't put in dash iPad HD or dash HD or dash wide HD. All I did is I put in that base image name. All right, so just kind of lock that into your brain. I'm never going to put in the extension, the device-specific extension in the property list. You're always going to use that base file name right there. Okay, and by the way, if someone was on an iPhone 3G, all right, so anything that was not an HD one, that's what this image would be for, okay? Unless, of course, you're just making an iPad app, and then this would be for the lowest kind of, non-HD iPad, all right? Now, if that's confusing to listen to, it's laid out in the documentation. In fact, I've got an entire section. I'm just going to show you guys iBooks Author real quick. An entire section called Adding HD Images to the Device, and you can see if you were to scroll down here, you get a little bit more of a kind of a spreadsheet style description of what I just said. So that is, that's kind of the basics of what you need to know about this kit. Everything else just comes down to kind of marking out values in the property list file and editing text. Okay, so it's really not too fancy. I will leave you guys again by going back over here to your main build settings for the kit, and if you want to switch this to portrait instead of being landscape mode. Again, that's talked about in the documentation as well, and you're going to see that in the Xcode project settings right here. But really all it comes down to is clicking off these two icons right here, that, and then untoggling those, and then going over here to your classes file. This is one of the only things you'll ever have to do in terms of the classes itself, but you just go and you do a find and replace. So you go over here to replace and go ahead and find landscape, right? It should show up 4 times, and replace it with portrait. All right, that's all you have to do, and then you've set this to be no longer landscape but portrait. And then you can also add in app icons. All right, so you do that from this summary panel as well. Your launch images, these are actually different than that intro image I showed you before. Launch images, you don't actually know how long they're gonna pop up for. It just depends on what the app's got to do to load up. So you don't see them that long, and that's why people don't really depend on them for showing off their studio credit, and hence using the intro image to do that instead. In my case, I just matched up the launch image to be the same thing as same image as the intro image. Okay, so it just should kind of feel seamless. But you can put in anything you want here. It could even just be a black image. All right, and then once you guys start to develop or get to the stage where you're going to submit your app to Apple, you need to worry about your bundle identifier. Okay, and when you go and you create your app, you're going to specify, and when I say create your app, when you're in your iTunes or your iOS development portal, you're going to eventually be asked for an app ID, and that needs to match up to what you have right here. And if you have trouble ever kind of changing this bundle identifier, go over here to your info panel, go to bundle identifier, and then just click inside of here, and you can do it that way as well. And then your version, okay, that's going to be for you to play around with. Version 1.0 would be the first version of your app, of course. And then in terms of the kit, I'm putting in the kit version over here in your build. All right, so you probably want to just leave that to be what I've set it as. That way, if you forget about your app for a year or so, and then you decide, hey, I want to kind of upgrade this thing, and you want to check with me and be like, what version is the kit up to? I'll be like, oh, it's up to 2.1 now, and then you can look back, you can go, oh, well, I'm at version 1.6, so I better go and upgrade. And then your deployment target, it is worth talking about that really briefly. If you want to support the iPad 1, okay, you don't want to set this to be 6.1. You want to set it to be 5.1. Okay. Now, if you're going to do that, don't use this kit at all. Okay. What you want to do is go and step back here to the deliverables and find the iPad 1 compatible kit. Okay, and the reason for that is just the iPad 1 wasn't able to go up to iOS 6. All right, the last available operating system for it was 5.1. Okay, in terms of functionality, what you lose out on is you can't post to Facebook. All right, so this version of the kit does not have this nice little Facebook button right here. Otherwise, it's really not that much different. So just kind of consider, who you think your audience is, and weigh in whether or not you think Facebook is that important. But I can't promise that the kit will always be that much different between the 6.1 or higher version and this one right here. Obviously, as the operating system gets more advanced, we might have to keep leaving behind this one right here. But at this date and time, whatever, sometime in April here in 2013, these are not too different other than just that Facebook functionality. All right, so from this point on, what I'm going to do is start up a separate video where we're going to start talking about the specifics of the pages array inside of here, and of course that ends up leading us down the rabbit hole of talking about everything that is possible with images, navigating your books, scrolling backgrounds, particles, everything that you can possibly do here, we're going to eventually end up discussing. So, to be continued for sure. Okay, so let's continue to look through the demo files, and I'm just going to open up the Xcode project one more time. In our previous video, I gave you guys a rather long introduction to what you can do with the kit, and let's continue now by looking at specifically the pages array. And I'm going to unfold this, and don't try to rename any of these items here. items in an array are always going to be labeled item 0, item 1, item 2, and so on. What these represent are every one of your pages right here. Nice thing is you can at least reorganize them, so you could just click one and then just drag it above another one if you did decide to reorganize things. And these also unfold, and the data type here is a dictionary, which just means that it has basically lots of other kind of sub keys inside of here. In fact, it's even got other arrays inside of here. So just focus in for right now on item 0, which is the first page. All right, and every page is going to have a page name for interaction, and this is a really important value for a couple reasons. First off, you don't want to ever have two pages that have the same page name for interaction, because a lot of times you're going to be pointing to a particular page, right? You're going to send the reader to go to that page, and you do that by clicking on an image, right? So kind of has to know where to go to, and that's this value right here. And I would name them appropriately. Instead of calling them things like vague that are, you know, page 1, page 2, whatever, I'd call it cover or cover 1. In this case, I have 2 cover pages to the book. One slides into the other one, so that's why I use cover 1. But you know, in another example, you might want something like bulldozer 1, bulldozer 2. All right, so and then we've got our page image, and in this case, it is cover page 1.png, and obviously I've already added that as a resource over here. If I were to go and look at it, it would look something like this. All right, it's just kind of your main background to the scene. Every page is going to have its just kind of one image at least on there, and this is at a z depth of -1. All right, so, and z depth is something we'll talk about a little bit more later, but you can layer all of your images, so anything above -1 is going to be visually layered above this cover page. Now, the cool thing is too, though, you can also make this a semi-transparent image and have other images layered beneath that one. So think of this kind of as -1 just being in the middle of anywhere, right? You can have z-depth numbers that go up into the thousands, so you got plenty of room to put things above or below. Your page skipped in book order is a Boolean type property, which just means it has 2 values, yes or no. All right, and by setting this to no, what I'm saying is that I don't want you to skip flipping through this particular page, all right? Because what you can do is you can just have simple buttons that say go to the next page or go to the previous page, right? And what those buttons are going to do is they're going to go through what I consider the primary order of the book. All right, so that's what this refers to, is we're not skipping this in the primary order of the book. And when you guys are testing this in Xcode, you can always keep your eye on these messages that will just constantly be popping up down here. They just have to do with little kind of notes to myself or yourself as to what is going on right now. And some of the early ones that you'll see here are number of pages in the entire book is 7. Number of free pages, actually you can ignore that, that's an older log message. But here's an important one. Page names in an entire book are cover 1, cover 2, page 1, page 2, upsell, all right, paid page and paid page 2. Sorry, difficult to say this. And then it says page names in the primary order of the book. Okay, again, we have the same things over here, but something to note is that if this book was purchased, all right, or if product 1 was purchased, I should say, this upsell page would be removed from the primary order of the book, meaning that if someone was just casually flipping through it, going from next page to next page, that would be removed. So you can also just you know, have particular pages that you want to remove from the main book order, whether they have to do with selling a product or not. An example of that might be if you had a map, right? So you're telling a Lord of the Rings type story, and you want to always give people the option to view the map, right? But you don't want them to specifically see the map at a certain time. You want it to just be like you know, you click a button, opens up the map. All right, that would be a good page to skip in the main order of the book. All right, so it would end up being listed in your page names in the entire book, right, but it would be left out of the primary order of the book. And then you've got this other option here which says, is free preview cut off for, and most of your pages are probably going to say none for this value, right? But you might want to put product 1 there, product 2, 3, 4, or 5. Those are all valid options, all right? Anything else is not valid. Or just essentially gets ignored, like putting in none right here. You could actually put in any value other than product 1 through 5, and it's essentially just like putting in none here. Okay, if this is product 1 though, what that means is this page should be used as an upsell, all right? And I wouldn't recommend doing that for your cover page, but this page would be used to upsell product 1, all right? So it's essentially becomes like a gateway where if product 1 has not been purchased, you'll see this page. If product 1 was already purchased, then you would not see this page, okay? And the code would know to automatically remove it from this primary order of the book right here. And if this was going to be your upsell page, one of the things, of course, you would include would be an image inside of your images overlays array, which would be used to purchase the book, or purchase product 1, I should say. And also it's recommended, or actually it's required, that you include somewhere in your book a button that restores past purchases, all right? And of course that's an option in the code as well to easily restore all of your past purchases, and we'll talk about that in a separate video. So just be aware that you want to probably set this to be none, at least for right now. And of course, we'll talk more about making purchases later. All right, now we start to get into the other options on the page. You can have audio options, and background audio enabled. You'd set that to either yes or no. Background audio loops, again, yes or no. Here's your background audio file. In this case, it's just the sound of the wind playing, all right? And it's a nice loop, so I made it loop on this first page. Narration enabled. This I set to no because I don't really feel like narrating every page of my example book here. But just as an example, I put in an audio file of rain. So the file really doesn't have to have anything necessarily to do with narrating the book. You can put in any supplemental audio file here. And obviously, if I want to toggle that on, I could just put in yes right there. And then you can also set this to delay your narration time. So if this was some narration for the book, you might want to wait a few seconds, kind of let people absorb the page, and then begin reading or describing whatever you want to inside of there. And don't think that those are your only audio options. They're not. You can have more audio options based on the images that you include through here. So any image can, any image can trigger a sound. It can also play a sound by default. You can play sound based on animation looping. So those are these are just kind of your basic page their audio options. Okay, page turns. This will unspool to give you a lot of different options right here, and as you can see, most of mine are set to be no. And just reading the key values over here is pretty self-explanatory. Top right turns page forward, so touching the top right turns page forward. No. Top right turns page backward. No. Okay, and you can go through there. What I have done is I've put in here that touching the top left turns the page backward is set to yes. I was kind of just using that for internal testing to go back a page, and then to anywhere turns page forward. All right, so if this isn't the case, if you're not touching in the top left, it would then check to see if you touched anywhere else, and then that would make the cover page turn forward. And come to think of it, I do kind of want to switch that back to no. And then for reference only are some of your other transition, or these are your transition options. Okay, so what you've got here for your transition type forward is a transition to the right, which just kind of slides in the next page to the right. For the backward one, I just put in a different one. This is fade to black, or it fades to a black. Fades to black first and then brings in the other page. Whereas a crossfade would kind of mix the two pages together, fade one out while the other one's fading in. And then you can set the transition time, and you can also put in here reverse transition, and this would only apply to things like the the page flip forward. Like so, instead of the page appearing to flip forward, it would flip backwards. So you might want to set that if for different country-specific versions of the book. If the people in that country traditionally read their books from backward to forward. Now, these are not the only ways to navigate your book. In fact, for the most part, I don't use these preset page turn options. For the most part, what I do in navigating the book is I use images, okay? And those images I just specify to either go to a specific page or to just go to the next page or previous page. And typically what I do is I put them into this navigation folder right here, and you can also put them into a buttons folder, or you can put them into your image overlays folder. This array, this array, and this array all contain the same type things, which are your image overlays. Okay, and they have a lot of specific settings just for them, and you can see that I've got a lot of images on that particular page, so there's lots of items inside of this array, and then when you unfold them there's quite a bit to discuss, particularly under the interaction section. So what I'm going to do is just fold this up and fold this up, and we'll come back in a separate video and talk specifically about the image overlays. Okay, so let's go back into the pages array, and we will unfold the first page, and then let's go find our image overlays array. There it is. And for this page, most of the images are contained within here. And actually, for past versions of the kit before this one, all of your image overlays were in this one particular folder here. What I've done in version 1.6 and onward is make it so that you guys can take the same items that are inside of your image overlays array, for example, item 0, 1 through 6 here, and you could just copy them using your regular copy and paste keys on the keyboard and put them into other folders. For example, here's one called navigation, right? And if I did actually copy that, I could go and just paste it. Actually, you want to unfold that first, then paste it in, and of course I'd probably want to delete out the previous one. But this makes it so that you guys can not have to have everything inside of one image overlays folder. And code-wise, you can have these folders be blank, doesn't really matter. And you've got the option to call them navigation, buttons, that's another option. And actually what I'll do to refresh my own memory is go back over here to the code where I plugged in that possibility. Other options would be just images, okay, navigation, user interface, group 1, group 2, group 3, background, and buttons. And if you wanted, you could always copy and paste, just put in another line here, and then just title any folder you want, and then go back over here to your properties list and just create a new folder. And of course you could just create these folders by copying and pasting a previous one in there. Oops, sorry. Copy paste, and then just, so for example this could be group 1. And the reason I bring this up is just because from a development perspective, or actually from the developer side using this kit, I found that I was putting a lot of images inside of the image overlays folder, and you know, this many is not too hard to keep track of, but when you have like something like 20 and you're putting together a puzzle app, it gets to be a little bit daunting to have a lot of them in here. So if you can just kind of tuck away certain things into these folders, it helps a lot. But the main point here is that every one of them functions the same way. All right, so these are all going back and using this same image overlay class, no matter what folder they're in. And again, you don't really have to worry about the classes, but let's just talk about what each one of these is capable of doing. And you've got this main setting here called enabled, this main property. This is set to yes or no. Now, if you set this to no, it's not going to be added to the scene, but it is an image that you could add to the scene by interacting with another image. All right, so in this case, this is just the main text that says story begins, or the story begins, right? And this is obviously an image that I want shown on the page itself. So I'm going to put yes over here. I'll point it to my image file. Again, I'm not putting in any sort of device specific extension in here, so I'm not putting in -iPad HD. And then I'm choosing a Z depth. A lot of times I just hack away and put some high Z depth level if I just know it's going to be something drastically above everything else. In this case, I just put 101, and then my name for interaction is story begins. Now, I may or may not want to interact with this image at all, okay? And by interact, I mean there's things I can tell this image to do. I could tell it to fade out, things like that. I could remove it from the scene, or if it was disabled, not enabled initially, I would use this name to tell or specify that the property list make it so that this image does get added. All right, so this is an essential property, and I think that as you're kind of plugging in your images, it's just a good idea to just put in a name for interaction, even if you don't think that you're going to use it, okay? And just make it a unique name. A lot of times I'll just go with whatever the name of the file is, or maybe just drop an underscore, doesn't matter. And then tag. It's totally optional. You don't have to put in a tag here. All of your images can be tag 0. There is the ability to kind of we'll use the tag later, but we'll talk about that another time. And then delay time to show image. This is just going to be in seconds. So if you don't want the image to be seen right away, if you want to delay it 5 seconds, put a 5 in there. Play audio file when image appears. That's an obvious one. This is set to no right now, but if I set that to yes, then you would hear the audio file to play, which is swish.mp3. Self-destruct in seconds. That's a fun one. If I set this to 3, that means that 3 seconds after it was shown, it would disappear. So, for example, if it delayed showing it by 3 seconds and self-destructed it 3 seconds after that, that would mean a total of 6 seconds after the scene had loaded, the image would be gone. All right, so the clock starts ticking when this image actually appears. Follows touch. This is set to no, but if you set it to yes, then your user can move their finger along the screen, and that particular image will automatically follow their touch. So these are your kind of basic options right here, and then let's talk about the options inside of your movement transition dictionary, which is just full of other properties. And again, it's kind of just a way of organizing things. Move transitions enabled. All right. Right now, this is set to no, which means that when the image appears, it's not going to go from a starting location to an ending location. It's just going to appear at the ending location, and that's a key thing to remember. All right. So even if this is set to no, we're still going to end up using the ending location for a place to put it, because it's got to go somewhere, right? And depending on the device that you're using, whether it's an iPad, iPhone wide, or regular iPhone, you've got different locations set up inside of here. Now, since this particular demo project is set to be iPad only, I'm only ever going to worry about the iPad locations in here. And regardless of whether or not it is an HD device, the locations don't matter. They don't change based on it being HD, all right? Because it still uses, for placement purposes, if it was landscape, a 1024 by 768 tall screen. Okay, so what you do have to do for your locations is always put in these opening and closing squiggly marks, and then you just put the X value and then the Y value. Sorry, so that's X value and then the Y value, comma separated after that. And obviously, if I set this to be yes over here, then my starting iPad location is going to be at 0, 160, and then it's going to move to this location in that amount of time. All right, and then you can also have some fun. You can put in here move transition reverses. If you set that to yes, that would mean that it would go back and forth between these two values right here. You could set the number of times that it repeats to do that. So I just put an absurd number like 10,000 to essentially mean it's going to loop forever unless somebody watches it 10,000 times. And then your move reverse time, so the amount of time it takes to go from here back to here, I just set to be 2 as well, but you could set that to be a different number. And our transitions all kind of work the same like that, all right, where you've got that option to reverse them. So a size transition, same deal. I set this to be no, but if I wanted it to be half its current size, half its regular size, I'd put in 0.5 here for the start size, and then for the finish size, which it's going to use regardless of whether or not this is set to yes or no, is set to be 1, which is 100%. Size transition time, how long it takes to go from these two values, that's 2 seconds. Size reverses, it's set to yes, but because this is not enabled, it doesn't matter. All right, so maybe it's a little clearer if I put that to be no then, but it just gets ignored. And then your size reverse time, half a second. Size reverse repeats, I set that to be 20. I'm just kind of playing around with numbers here. And then your rotation transition, same deal. Enabled or disabled based on this Boolean value. Rotation in degrees, -20, finish rotation, 0 degrees. You can put in here anything from 0 to 360, although that doesn't really make it do a full loop. It's kind of, the rotation's a little tricky. You can essentially go from like 0 to 180, all right? Just play around with that and see what works. And then your rotation transition time is going to be 3 seconds. Your rotation reverses, again, same deal. Does it reverse essentially? And then how long it takes to reverse, and then how many times it's going to reverse. Fade transition. Again, this actually, I am using this one in this case because that image story begins with kind of glowing, right? In and out glowing. And so I had a start opacity of 0 and a finish opacity of 255. And just to demonstrate that, what I could do is bring that in real quick. Of course, I already loaded up this page, so it's already kind of showing everything. But there you go. So it fades out, and then it slowly fades back in. So that's a nice little effect if it the image itself looks like it's glowing. And for those of you expecting this to be 100, for some reason opacities or your transparencies, your range is 0 to 255. Okay, so about 120 would be half transparent, and you can see the transition time is 7. I set that to reverse, yes. Reverse time 5 seconds, and it does that 1,000 times. Flip X. This one's a little bit simpler. If basically just a yes or no, so is it going to flip on the x-axis? So just do a straight kind of like, horizontal flip. And at what time is it going to do that? So 2 seconds after it appears, it's just going to flip. All right, there's no real transition here, it just flips. Flip X back. All right, so the amount of time it takes for it to go back to its original setting. All right, 5 seconds later, and then does it repeat? And the main reason I put this option in here is because if you were to have something like, say, a fish swimming back and forth, going from a movement, using the movement transition, right, you'd want that fish to flip when it gets to the end of the point it's swimming to. All right, so then it will go back. And then we've got same thing for the flip Y. Don't really need to talk about that. Your animation properties. Okay, you can put in animated frames here. So in this case, I just have this to be set to no. Obviously, you want to set that to yes. The frames per second. So this is how quickly it goes through the frames that you add in here. Okay, and you might think, oh well, I definitely want 30 frames per second. That's what most animations are, right? Well, it just depends. What you could do is have your animation be limited to just 1 or 2 frames. They might just be a person blinking or something like that. So you might want to slow down how quickly that animation appears. So that's why you have your frames per second. And this is set to be 30 here, so it's relatively high. Your start delay, all right, if you want to delay the animation starting, put that to some number other than 0. Your base frame name, that's an important one. So what you're going to do is put in a file called character_animation, make the well, just depending on whatever image file you got. So in this case, just for example, let's say it's a character animation, right? So that would be the base file name, and then I'd put in character_animation1.png to indicate that will be the first frame there. But you can start at any frame number, and then the frames to play. So in this case, the final frame would end up being character underscore animation 10. And let's just check our resources folder. So we've got animation. There we go. So this is how things would look. And again, don't worry about putting in the dash specific extension for any particular device. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 10. Okay. Loop cycle. This just is a yes or no. Are we going to loop through the cycle? And then do we want to include that initial delay in the loop itself? So here's yes or no for that. Of course, if it was just set to 0, then it's not going to do anything. But if you did have that that delay in there, maybe 5 seconds, then once it goes through the cycle, it's going to come back and go, oh, all right, let me delay 5 seconds again. And then it says, if no loop, end on what frame? And you can choose which of these frames you want to end on if you're not going to loop through things. And then your animation sound enabled, you can set this to be yes, and it will play this file at the beginning of the sequence every time. Okay. Then fold that up, and we've got our interaction properties. This is a big one. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and talk about our interaction settings in another video, but just going to wrap things up here. Every one of your image overlays can include interaction. Okay, so essentially every image is kind of like a button as well. Now you can disable that really quickly by just setting this to be no, but just keep that in mind. Let it simmer a little bit, that every image can be used to do something else. All right, so I'm just going to fold these back up so we don't get confused and we start fresh in the next video. Okay, let's talk about the interaction properties of your image overlays, and what we'll do is we'll just go to our first page here. Let's find our first image on here, unfold item 0, and this is that graphic that says the story begins, which we've been referencing quite a bit so far in this demo. And I've already got unspooled the interaction properties, so let's go through each of these, and they're pretty simple, but we've got a lot of possibilities. So interaction enabled, you're going to set that to be yes or no. If you set this to be yes, essentially this image is now a button. It can be tapped on to do something. Sound on press enabled, yes or no here. If you want to play sound, if you do, then the sound file would be located right here. Just put in click.mp3 or whatever file that you have imported to the resources folder, and then image to show during press. That right now this is set to no, but you could toggle that to be yes, and then when you tap down on the device and are holding your finger down on it, you would see whatever image file you put in here. So just any sort of alternate. Of course, kids love this. If you have you know, like a person, press on him, he lifts up his top hat and makes some funny noise. Right there, you've kind of got the fundamentals of a game with just a few properties, right? And then you've got remove immediately on press, yes or no. This might be good for anything, a bubble popping thing. You just tap on an image and it goes away, right? Or you can set this to be remove with fade on press. That can be set to yes, and then in that case you have a removal fade time. So I just put in 0.3 right there. And then you've got this option, touch disables other image touches. So if this image was over top other ones, you might want to set this to be yes, and then it gives priority to that particular image. And then for reference only, I've just put in some of the possibilities for your action for press value down here. And a lot of times your action for press value also has an action value. So for example, we've got go to page by name, and then I'm putting in the page name, or the I should say the name for interaction value of, oh no, actually the page name for interaction value. And don't forget too that when you first publish your app, you get all of your page names listed out here in the primary order of the book or in the entire book. So if you ever kind of forget what your page names are and you want to look them up really quickly, that's one way to do it. So just keep that in mind, that a lot of times we have an action for press, and then we've got an action value right here. And we're going to talk more about these the particular settings you can put in here for action for press in just a moment, but let me just finish up with the rest of these because they all kind of follow suit here. You've got disable action after press, in which case you can only press this button once. All right. and I've just put this to be no, but I'm sure you'll find reasons to set that to be yes. And then secondary interaction enabled. You've also got a third interaction, a fourth interaction, and a fifth interaction right here. Same thing for all of these, okay? Yes or no's. If you put in a yes right here, then you're probably going to want to put in an action for press and an action value. Okay, so each of these also has their corresponding action for press, action value, and so on, like that. So you have up to at least 5 options for something to do when you press a particular button. And I kind of doubt you'll use all 5, but I gave you that option right there. All right, now for your action for press, we've got so many different possibilities here. What you might want to do is, actually what you should definitely do, is go ahead and consult the documentation, and I'm just going to show you guys this in iBooks Author real quick. Of course, this would be the book you can open in iBooks itself, or you can get a PDF file of this and open it in virtually anything. I've already talked about these properties in the interaction section. What we're now up to is the action for press. So everything in green after here, kind of with all these bullet points after it, are the possible settings you can put in for your action for press. All right, so let's just start going through them. First off, you've got URL here, in which case this is going to be, you guessed it, a domain, www. whatever you want right there, and that will jump to a URL. Next page, you've got that option. Next page. In this case, you don't need an action value because the code in the book is going to know to just go to the next page in the primary order of the book. That's one of the reasons that we have a primary order of the book, because some pages you don't want to, just automatically go to if it's the next page, even if it is listed in here, right? And for things like an upsell page, if that page had been bought, or if that product had been bought, this next page is going to know to ignore something like that. In fact, if a product had been bought for that particular upsell page, it wouldn't even be listed in here as the primary order. Previous page works the exact same way. You don't need an action value right here. Return to current page is kind of a special case. What you do is you just put that right in here, and then your action value is going to, it could be left blank, or it could be the particular transition you want to use, like fade black, left, right, whatever it is, page flip forward, that you want to use to go back to the current page you're viewing. So this is a special case where if you had chosen to go to a page that was not in the particular order of the book, for example, I talked about like a map, right? So you might want to pop up the map, go to that page, and then send people back to wherever they were reading within the book. All right, so that's when you use this return to current page setting. So probably you would end up using this go to page by name somewhere else in the book. Then on that page, you've got a button that uses that return to current page. Then we already talked about this go to page by name, so you know that that's going to be the page name for interaction set in there. You can put in here tweet, in which case your action value might be suggested text, right? Or you can put something like, I suggest my friends like this, okay? People can change that text, but, might as well try to get them to say what you want. And then you can also do this as a version 1.6, tweet about app, in which case you can still put in here your suggested text, but the app is also going to include a URL to your app in the store, which I'll talk about in a second, and it's also going to include a file called promote_app.png, and that's why when you select this, you're going to see this right here, because I really want you to replace this image with something that you would use as a promotional tool, some sort of graphic that is going to entice people to go to or to click on that link, because this will get attached to the tweet, and the same thing is going to be true for a Facebook thing as well. Now, what I haven't done, and this is one of the only things that you'd ever have to custom code into this app itself, is you do need to put in your page class, go up to the very top of it, paste in the actual link to your app in the store, all right? And until you have one, you might want to just delete that out, all right? or feel free to leave in my app right there. But when you start stepping through the creation process on Apple's side of you know, adding your metadata and all that stuff to your application, you will eventually get, even if your app has not been approved yet, you will eventually get a store URL for it. Okay, so then you just want to take that store URL and then paste it into the application. And if you don't do this on version 1, then you can do it on version 1.1 of your app, you know, if you kind of forget to do it. But just know that that is an option you can put in here, tweet about app, and then you can also put in, of course, Facebook, be sure that's a capital B, about app. And if you don't want to include those promotional details, you can just put Facebook, and then you can suggest something for them to write, or you can just put nothing at all. Okay, it'll just open up a blank Facebook window in that case. Then you've got add image by name. Add image by name. This works similar to going to a page by name, where now you're going to put in here the image that you want to add. Okay, so whatever you've put in for that particular, it might be tweet button, it might be birds, it doesn't matter. I'm just coming up with things here. And just don't forget that every one of your image overlays has this name for interaction value to be used for reasons like that. Okay, so we've also got then a remove image by name. Okay, so in which case, if we were to click on this button, it would go here, and then we put in here, you know, the image that we want to remove. Moving on, play animation. In which case, your action value is going to be the image that you want to start playing. All right, and if this particular image, the one that we're clicking, had an animation stored in here, it might be set to be no, right? But then as soon as we put in play animation and then also put in our name, right? This is the name of this image. It will play this one, or it can be any other image on the stage as well, in the scene. So any other image, right? And actually, kind of the tricky thing here is, or not tricky, but the fun thing here is that if you did happen to have other image overlays that had the same exact name, right? They don't actually all have to have the same, a unique name. If you put play animation, they would all end up playing. So something to consider. Kind of one of the hidden features, I guess, of the kit. All right, so then stop animation is going to work the same exact way. So if you just put in here stop animation, then your action value is going to be the animation you want to stop animating, right? And then a very important one, buy product 1. As of version 1.6 of this kit, you can now purchase multiple different in-app purchases. So buy product 2, buy product 3, buy product 4, buy product 5, right? Now, how does it know what product you want to buy? By just putting buy product 1. Well, if we step all the way out of our page array and go all the way back down to the root of our kit, you've got in here well, a few important options, and we'll talk about all these later in a specific video for purchasing in-app stuff, but you would want this to be yes, and then you'd put in here your product ID. So now this is going to be the only place in the entire kit and all of the code that you need to put in the actual identifier that you submitted to iTunes Connect. All right, so when you create in-app purchases, you put in a product ID. Remember what that ID is, and then just fill it in here, right? And then what you want to do is also put in a first page after unlocking the product, or product 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5. All right, so in this case, I would want that first page to be paid page, right? Or it could be paid page 2, whatever it is. Okay. When you purchase that product, the code will know to jump to this particular page. And if you were to accidentally send someone to the upsell page, it should skip to your paid page, right? So let's go back to our action for press settings, and another one to go along with that is restore purchase. Okay, so if you were to click on a button or tap on a button that has restore purchase right here, what the code will do is try to restore any past purchases, and you are required to give people that option if you have in-app purchases. Okay, and what it will do is it will, if you have multiple products that have been purchased, it's going to pop up an alert for all of them that says the product is available now. All right, so just kind of repeats that you've got that back again, and then if you were to send someone to a particular section that had been bought, it would be available. Any product dependent images would the next time they were reloaded would show that that they were available at that point. So you can just put the restore purchase button anywhere, really. I haven't heard specifics that Apple requires it to be in a certain place, but I think for peace of mind, you might want to put that at somewhere in the beginning of your application, maybe I don't know, on the first page even. But definitely any place that you're prompting people to buy the purchase. Now keep in mind too that that the app is always going to remember, as long as it hasn't been deleted, the app will remember that the purchases have been made, so you don't have to worry about that too much. All right, then another option, add particle by name. Now this gets us talking about particles, but particles also have their name for interaction, so they might be fireworks, right? And in which case it's going to add that particle to the scene. And you've also got remove particle by name. That works the same exact way. You just put in here what particle you want to remove. Here's another one, drag image, in which case we can put in here the image we want to drag, right? Image to drag. Again, just using the name for interaction property. And you could also put in here stop all dragging, in which case your action value can be blank, and all of the other images are going to be prevented from dragging. But what you might want to also do is call this first and then come down here and enable your second interaction property and put in a go back and put in drag image, and then just pick out another image to drag. So if you're kind of swapping back and forth between, I don't know, stickers to drag around the stage, that would be a good option. So to just prevent anything else from following along with that image from being touched, or dragged, I should say. And we still got some more here. Drag particle, gonna work the same way. Drag particle, and then you just put in the particles that you want to start dragging for the action value. Fade image. This is going to be the image that you want to fade, and it will what it's going to do is it's going to trigger the properties that you've already set up inside of here. So if you had these previously set to be fade enabled being no, then it's essentially going to flip the switch to on and going to go through what is currently set up in here, and the next few settings are going to work that same way. So move image, if you set it to be enabled to no before, then it's going to switch it on and it's going to start moving it. Same thing for flip X image, or flip Y image, or size image. Okay, so these are all going to use the image's existing properties, rotate image, and just basically enable them. All right. Then we've also got some things like pairs with, and I'm going to talk about that in a separate video, but that would be for making some sort of lock-in-place sticker page or puzzle page. All right, it kind of deserves its own video. And then save screen. If you wanted to put this in here, your action value can be left blank. What's going to occur though is when you press on this, it will save the current screen. Okay, so whatever people have been doing on the screen at that point, it's going to save it. So if it's on kind of like a construction app where kids can build things by dragging stuff around, that would be a good thing to include as well. And we can also talk about the playing video in here. You can put in play video full screen with controls. In which case your video should be stored locally. All right, so ocean.mp4 has already been added to this kit. I put it somewhere over here, video, right, just to test with. And your other options here would be play video with no controls, so it's not going to have any controls. It's just going to be kind of like a seamless video on screen. You can also put in here play video 720 by 480 with no controls, or optionally with controls. And you can also put in 480 by 320, or you can put in play video custom size with controls. And I think at this point it's worth noting, just go to the documentation and you can see in here how to set the custom sizes and things like that. And then just finally, you can also change, in all those examples I just gave you, play to stream, and in which case you're going to want to put in here HTTP, the location online of the video that you want to play. All right, so you've got stream and playable options. And then I need to get back to my notes to continue talking about this, don't I? Let's see, where did we leave off? Video. And then you can also, actually we're getting toward the end of it, you can also put in none. Okay, so remember I talked about earlier, you might want to just make use of playing a sound or changing an image on press, in which case you don't want to do anything, don't want to trigger anything over here, so just go ahead and put in none. All right, so we will come back and in different videos, kind of splinter videos off of these topics, we'll talk more about sticker pages and all the other things that you can possibly do, I guess. Alright, so this video we're going to talk about scrolling backgrounds and particles. Let's talk about the particles first, because I think they're a little bit more exciting. So I'm going to unspool the pages array and go down to particles. In this particular page we've only got one particle item in the array, but you could just copy and paste this one and create multiple ones. They work a lot like images in the sense that they can be enabled or disabled initially, and then you can add them later via an interaction. And if you guys aren't familiar with the term particle systems, maybe what I should do is show you a few examples of some things you can do. So for example, this is the mouse making a meteor particle move around the screen, and that has a nice blue tint to it, and you guys can control all that type stuff with the particular settings in here for that particle. Some other options would be, let me bring this back up here. There's fireworks. Okay, you can control how many of those little particles are in there. You've got fire. And by the way, I'm showing you guys some videos from my my entire book on Cocos 2D that I wrote. It's a pretty cool spiral one. That one looks nice when it's following around the mouse, and you can set any of these to follow the mouse as well. And here we go. We've got smoke billowing up. Let's see, just one more here. Let's show you guys an explosion. So how do we do this? Well, all right, let's start with item 0 here and just look at what's already in place. This one is enabled. Obviously, the particle type is going to be set to sun. And for your other possible options, it's always good to consult with the documentation. So we've got over here snow, sun, fire, galaxy, meteor, fireworks, spiral, smoke, explosion, flower, and rain. So you can put in every single one of those options and just test out all your different effects. The tag for interaction is an optional number you could use for just custom coding, and the name for interaction is probably the one that you're going to want to pay particular attention to. So in this case, it's I put in the sun right here. So if I wanted to interact with it, either adding the particle to the stage or removing the particle, I'd want to refer to this this value right here. All right, delay time to show, that's kind of an obvious one. How many seconds do we delay showing that on screen? Sound enabled, Yeah, that can be yes or no. Obviously, your sound file after that follows. The iPhone, well, you can have locations for, obviously, different locations for each of your particular devices. So iPhone location, you can put in here random. You can put in here a specific location at 200 by 430. Of course, the same thing is true that we had before. We got to put in these squiggly brackets right here. And you can also put in here the name of an image to basically kind of, in a sense, attach the particle to, at least initially. So you could put in here, you know, like Top Hat Man, right? If that was the name for interaction of an image you had on there, and the code will go and find that particular image's location, and then put the particle at that location. So you've also got dies off in seconds. So this is the number of seconds that the particle will die off in. All right, just set this to be 0 if you don't want the system to die off at all, and then removes after dying off. The dies off in seconds is similar to like turning off the hose, but water is still coming out. Okay. And then removes after dying in seconds would be, at what point does the water officially stop trickling out? Okay, so you might want to set this to be, well, 2 and 2 is a good example. You know, after 2 seconds, it stops emitting new particles, and then those particles are finally totally removed after this many seconds. All right, size multiplier. You might not like the default size of the particle system, in which case 3 would be 300%, 2 would be 200%, 1 would be 100% regular size, 0.5 would be half the regular size. So Z depth, you get to choose, of course, the layering on stage where it's going to occur. Follows touch. This is obviously yes or no. And some of these particles look really, really cool when they follow the touch, so consider adding that. And then enable color changes. I would say initially just set this to be no, and then see what the color comes out for these particle systems. A lot of times, like, they're kind of appropriate to the system themselves. Like a sun system will be kind of yellowish tinted, but then you can go in here and start playing around with these particular settings, and you've got 0 to 1 for your ranges here, and decimal numbers in between. So an end red setting would be full red if it was set to 1, or no red if it was set to 0. So, and the start and the end values are kind of like these little particles start at a certain coloring, and then they kind of end at another one. And then you can do the same thing for your alpha. So starting with 0 and then ending at 1. So 0 being totally transparent. Now, change default particle image, yes or no? In this case, I put no, well, in this case, I put no, and it's going to default to the same value anyway. This resources folder has a fire.png file, and it also has a fire-iPad-HD.png file, so a corresponding device-specific image to be used on the Retina display ones, and you'll want to include that for your iPhone as well if you're going to be targeting the iPhone. And you can make this be any image you want. So in my kit, where I was the build a vehicle kit, when you finish constructing something, it pops up stars. So every one of the little particles is a star image. In this case, the fire.png file is just, it's probably kind of hard to see in this, but it's just this white circle that is blurred out. All right, and that's typically what ends up looking best for most of these particles, is just a blurry circle. But again, you can use anything you want in there. Okay, just expect to see, 1,000 frogs if it's a frog image. All right, and then you can also go and change the default gravity. In this example, I've set that to be no, but you can set that to be yes. And then for your gravity settings here, you're essentially putting in a pull for the particles. All right, so try something like 1 and 1, or 20 and 20, or well, this is the X and this is the Y. So negative, let's say a negative number over here would pull to the left, a positive number would pull to the right, zeros in the middle, a positive number on here would pull up, and a negative number here would pull down. So just do a little trial and error with how high those numbers should be. And then your change default emission rate is, well, this is obviously set to no here, and change it to yes, and then you can put in a value, raise or lower, trial and error. A lot of these particle systems have different emission rates for to begin with. And let's see, did I put a note in here? Try to see if I have a little note in here for the emission rates of them. I guess not. But if you ever wanted to see what the default emission rate was, you could go over here, and I'm sure I've left in. Oh, yeah, I did leave in. So see these log statements that tell you, like, this is telling you the default gravity. And anyway, well, when you add a particle system, just keep an eye on your output messages. But for me, I just do a lot of trial and error. I'll stop saying trial and error now. All right, so let's fold up the particles, and let's look at scrolling backgrounds. These are infinitely simpler. We've got enabled, yes or no. So if you just turn this to no, it's not going to be set on. And if we obviously had that as yes, we're going to use this clouds.png file. And typically what you're going to want to do is I'm going to bring in the documentation here. You're going to want to have an image that repeats, okay? And if one side of your image cuts off, like a little fragment of something like this cloud is getting cut off right here, be sure it repeats on the other side as well. Or you can just not go to that trouble by just being sure that your image doesn't clip, or the side of, I should say the boundary of your image does not clip off any little graphic in between. And here are the notes for the particular sizes that these images need to be. So on the iPhone non-retina, the image should be 512 by 512. For the iPad non-retina, the iPhone retina, the iPhone wide, use a 1024 by 1024 image if it's going to be a scrolling background. And then finally for the iPad retina, use a 2048 by 2048 image. It does have to be those specific sizes, okay? And then you've got your Z depth, works like usual. Your scroll time, how long does it take for one side of the image, or basically for the entire image to scroll across the screen? And technically what happens here is basically you just get this image twice. So whatever you see here also appears over on the other side, and then it just scrolls across. Okay, so how long does it take for one scroll essentially? And then you can choose to reverse the default direction. So if it's going from left to right, it would then go to right to left if you set that to be yes. And then you can also offset the Y location. All right, you can't mess around with the X settings. They're always just going to put the image right in the middle of the screen and then start scrolling it left or right. But what you can do is you can offset the Y location going up or down. So just again, just put in here something to experiment with, like -200, and then see where your image ends up up or down. Okay, and that pretty much makes scrolling backgrounds about as easy as I can make them. And they actually had a really nice effect to a sort of static scene, because you could just put in there something like some clouds scrolling past in the background. And consider too that you can have multiple items inside of here, so you can have a nice sort of parallax background, meaning stuff in the far off distance scrolling at a much smaller speed, or a much slower speed than stuff in the foreground. And anytime you need to make another one of these properties, of course all you have to do is just copy the one that you have selected, then paste it, and then you can just go in here and start changing, maybe make that clouds too. Okay, so that is all I have to say about scrolling backgrounds and particles. Okay, let's talk about images on every page and menus. The two kind of go hand in hand a little bit. Let's just jog your memory real quick with what I mean by menus. Well, if you click right here in the bottom left, you can see that a menu slides up, and you've got different pages that you can click to. Some of these are product dependent images. So if product 1 here was not bought, which is the case, you see this locked image. If product 1 was bought, you obviously see that without the lock image right there. And then you've also got this little close icon, and it immediately closes everything. And then you've got the button to pop the menu back up again, which comes back. So these are kind of just a little on and off toggle in a sense. All right, and they are actually not part of the menu right here. Those two icons to open and close the menu are stored here in the array for images that appear on every single page, because that's exactly what they do. And if I were to unfold these, you can see that they're no different than any of the other images that we've talked about in the images array. All right, so they could really just be anything. In this case, we're just using them to open and close the menu. Now, if I go down to my interaction properties, you can see that, and I am using the open menu right now, I'm looking at that one. You can see that I've set this to be yes. And what I'm doing is when I click on the image, it's going to remove with a fade on press, so that's set to yes, and it'll remove after 2 seconds. Adjust that as you feel, if you whatever you like. And then action for press is set to show menu 1. So that is specifically going to show menu 1 right here. And I could also set that to be show menu 2, menu 3, menu 4, menu 5 if I had a menu 2, menu 3, menu 4, menu 5. Okay, so this kit supports up to 5 different menus like this. So you just put in here action for press, show menu 1. You don't put anything for the action value. And then I'm also disabling the action after the press, so you can't just double click the menu and show it twice. And then I'm also putting in here second interaction enabled, set to yes, and I'm adding an image by name, and that image is going to be the close menu icon. So let's scroll back up here. We can unfold this, unfold that one, then fold down item 1, and you can see that that's our close menu icon. All right, now this, if we check out the interaction properties, looks very similar. This is set to yes. This time around, I'm removing the close menu icon immediately on press. The action for press is close menu 1, so that's going to close all the contents that are enclosed inside of our menu 1 array. And then, you guessed it, I'm setting this interaction property to yes, or the secondary interaction enabled to yes, and then the action for press is going to be add image by name, and then I'm adding back the open menu icon. So then we kind of start all over again, right? So close it, adds back the open menu icon, open this one, that fades out, and then 2 seconds later it brings in the close menu icon. And I should have actually mentioned that the delay time for the close menu icon is 3 seconds. Again, I mentioned this earlier. Kids tend to double click a lot when they don't need to playing with an app. So if you do, or if you are making a children's app, I would suggest getting a little bit of a delay in there for some of your interaction things. Otherwise, they get kind of confused and then they almost click more, and then who knows what can happen at that point. All right, so that's one of the main reasons I had this images on every page option, just so that you only have to put these menu icons in one place throughout the entire kit. Otherwise, you'd have to put them like on a per page basis. And if there are other images that you just knew were always going to be on every single page, like for example, you always wanted to have a Facebook icon on every page, then go ahead and find that that icon in the kit, or just create another, or copy and paste another image overlay dictionary and put in the details there and store it inside of here. This definitely is on definitely on every page though. Okay, code wise, it's always going to pull from out of here and put in those particular items. All right, now let's talk about menu 1. If you unfold this, the first item in here is the menu bar right here. And this can be, of course, any graphic you want. I just put in this semi-transparent black bar. You can see it slide up in the beginning right there. So that's all that is. It's really nothing more than, in fact, I can find it for you. It's just a black bar, right? And then the other items inside of here are just these thumbnails, okay? So each one of those has a item, right? So item 1 is going to be menu thumb 1. And the interaction on this is, you can probably imagine, go to page by name, cover 1. Well, of course, that just goes back to the cover page, right? And so on for the other items. They just jump 2 pages. Now, Menu thumb 2 is always going to be unlocked. Okay, so let's just assume that's a free portion of the book. Menu 3 as well. All right, so 2, 3, those are all always going to be unlocked regardless of a product purchase. But then we come down to menu item 4 and menu item 5. These both have to do with this fourth thumbnail right here. Okay, so let's take a look at them. Item 4, it is going to be enabled, and then there's this other option inside of here. Enable if this product bought. And then you put in here product 1. All right, so if product 1 has been bought, that is going to show menu thumb 4. And then you've got your usual options inside of here. All right, so if this was a bought one, then go to page by name would be paid page or whatever page you want to go to. All right, now let's check out the opposite. Let's unspool item 5. This time around I put enabled set to being no, but it will be enabled if, so enable if this product not bought, there's a keyword not, product 1. And then in which case we show the menu thumb 4, which is locked, which is what you're seeing right now over here. All right, otherwise everything else is the same. And we go down to our interaction properties, and because this is the locked image, go to page by name is now set to upsell. All right, so that is the name of the page I have in here for upselling, right? And if you were to click on this, I probably should have clicked on it earlier, it's going to go to a page like this that says, hey, want to read more? Well, guess what? Buy the book, restore past purchases. Okay, what you don't want to put in here is a button that goes to the next page, because if that was going to be your paid page, you wouldn't want to intentionally send someone further than they should be. You want to rely on kind of your own navigation, your own common sense navigation, in other words. So let's just go back and look at that one more time. So we've got item 4 and item 5. This one's set to being yes, but will be overridden if this is not the case. All right, this one is being set to be no, but that'll be overridden if that's not the case. All right, if this is not bought. The reason I'm doing that, and it's not an absolutely, you don't absolutely have to do that, have this one be yes and this one be no, but check this out. The reason that is because if I were to go and disable every single in-app purchase, and I can do that by just putting no in here, watch what happens when I republish the app. So I'm going to hit stop on it, right? So now I've disabled every single in-app purchase, right? Doesn't exist in this app anymore, which you might want to do for promotional purposes to give away the app for free. Now when I go over here and open up the menu, look what happens. By default, I get the unlocked versions. And the only reason I get that is because this is now being ignored entirely because I've disabled in-app purchases. So then what's it going to do? It's going to go look to see if it should enable itself or not. And again, we come over here. This is now going to be ignored because I've disabled all in-app purchases. All right, so then it just goes, oh, well, I'm not enabled anyway, so it's not going to show itself, right? And then you're free to go and click on these things. And that's actually another great way to just test your app to make sure things are working without having to go through the in-app purchase buying process. Okay, so, and you can see that just goes to a puzzle now, right? Does that make sense? And of course that item 6 and 7 in here function the same exact way. So they're also checking to see if product 1 was bought, and they go to, or they show menu thumb and so on like that. Pretty cool, huh? I think it's cool because this was not something that was included in the previous versions of the kit, and it now opens up the possibilities of many menus and books within books. And and I should mention too that you don't have to buy the products in any particular order. Okay, so you could purchase product 2 before product 1, or product 5 before product 1. It doesn't matter. You're just kind of setting up your own little gateways for navigating people around the paid portions of your particular book. So, yeah, I'll talk more about all that again in a specific video on in-app purchasing. Okay, let's talk a little bit about in-app purchasing, and this is actually a very broad topic because before we even talk about the settings inside of the property list file, which mostly just have to do with your product IDs, we need to talk a little bit about your actual app ID, all right? And that's how Apple knows essentially what your app is, or who your app is, right? Okay, and before you should even put it in here, what you're going to want to do is go over to Apple's provisioning portal, which means you're going to need also be a paid Apple developer. You're going to have to pay that $99 fee, and that basically allows you to start creating real apps. And throughout the kind of setup process here, you're going to download some certificates to be a developer. You're going to put in your information, your test device information, which is you can actually get in Xcode by going over here to Window Organizer. You'll open up the organizer, and then you'll see, like, here's your device identifier. You'll give them information like that. And finally, what you'll end up doing is eventually creating an app ID, all right? And if you can see from the screen grab, I might have to zoom in on a little bit. You put in your kind of internal name for the application, or common name, it says right here. Then your bundle seed, you can just use team ID. And then here's the important part, your bundle identifier. And they recommend that you do a reverse of your domain name, so com.cartoonsmart. And then whatever the app name is. In this example, I just put book title right here. And fill that in, and then that's going to be what you put right here. That's your bundle identifier, or also commonly called your app ID. All right. Then what you're going to do is create, again, in the provisioning portal, both a development and a distribution certificate. And Apple's going to step you through that, but pay close attention here. Your development certificate is going to be what you use to actually test running the application on your device. Your distribution certificate is what you end up using when you want to publish the app and create it for the store itself. All right. And if you've got everything filled in correctly, Xcode should match up your distribution and your code signing identity based on your, oh, there it is, based on your bundle identifier, that ID that we just created. If you have problems with that, though, and these are kind of common, don't feel like you've messed anything up. If you have problems, go over here to your build settings, just type in code signing right here, and then just click down here and double check to be sure that your iPhone developer setting, and hopefully it'll say after this, currently matches, and then it's getting clipped off, but it should show you the app name, or the kind of common name for your app in there, or at least show you the bundle identifier that matches that certificate. Be sure those are set up correctly. So you've got your development certificate and your distribution one, right? And these are divided into debug, so you're debugging it, testing it on your device, or releasing it, basically releasing it to the public. That's going to be your distribution one. All right. If you have problems with this, you might need to restart Xcode, and then go back and hopefully the settings match up again. All right. But they're never going to match up if you don't have your correct bundle identifier in there to begin with. Once you've got that set in, right, then when you test run your app, it'll you make these kind of test calls to the store to check your product IDs. It's going to also feed in your bundle identifier. So they'll go, okay, I know what this app is. Now I'm going to check for those in-app IDs. All right, now then, or I should say then, not now. In iTunes Connect, you're going to go and create your app. Okay, even if you aren't finished with your app, you're going to go and fill in information for it. So you're going to put in your app name, your SKU numbers, anything you want. then your bundle ID, that's your bundle identifier again. You're going to pick that out from this drop-down list. It should be shown there, all right? And once you've kind of gone through some other steps of filling in information about the app, I put in here, I just made a little note, metadata, keywords, description, stuff like that. You even have to put in an icon. Then you can go and create a in-app purchase, or you're going to look for manage in-app purchases. Find that button. Go over here to create new, non-consumable. That means that people don't have to purchase it twice. It's not like coins in a game that you spend. Once you've bought a section of the book, you're free to download it or re-download it again without charge. So set it to non-consumable, and then eventually you're going to get down here a reference name. All right, so I'll just put in here book unlock, and then a product ID. That's the important thing that we want to take note of and put into our property list. And that's going to be the only thing that you ever have to, or only place in this entire kit that you ever have to put that particular product ID. All right. Once it's in there, all the code will go and find that particular ID for product 1. All right. So after this is in here, just mentally think, all right, that's product 1, or that's product 2, that's product 3, and so on like that. Because, well, we've already looked at some of the other code that has to do with, you know, checking a product dependency based on, or showing an image based on a particular product being purchased. And the reference for that is always going to be product 1, product 2, instead of trying to use this ID over and over again. That would get a little confusing, wouldn't it? So, other things to fill in here are going to be your first page after unlocking the product. All right, that's going to be your page in the book to go to after someone has purchased that particular product, right? So here in my list of pages, I've got paid page, all right? So I'm going to go there after someone has bought the book. Let's look at some of the code that buys the actual book. So I'm going to go over here to pages. My item 4 in here is my upsell page for selling product 1. All right, so I've got on here, and you could actually have upsell pages that sell multiple products, but I've got over here, let's see, under my image, let's see, is it this one? Okay, here it is. Item 1 is my buy book image. All right, it actually looks like a book to be purchased, right? And then under interaction, it's set to be yes, and we've got over here buy product 1. In fact, I don't even need to have that action value anymore. So it just says buy product 1, and then it's going to know where to go to after a successful purchase. You've also got in here, though, or I've actually also included in here a secondary interaction, which just makes some sparkly particles when show up if someone clicks on that button. All right, that's the buy product 1. Now, Apple requires you to also include a restore purchases button. So I've got over here another image called restore book 1, or just restore book. There's no book 1, just restore book. Okay, and interaction is going to be set to yes, and then the action for press, I was just kind of messing around playing with the animations included in here as well. The secondary interaction is the important one, and all this is set to is restore purchase. Okay, if you have multiple products that have been bought, it's going to restore all of them, and the user will see a little pop-up alert that just says purchase has been restored. When you're restoring purchases, you don't get jumped to anywhere. You just stay on that particular page. So there's a little bit of a less to do if restored products are found. So you might want to put the restore button just on like the cover page or someplace people can find it. You don't necessarily have to include it in with a certain product to be bought, but Apple has decided that they require these now. So just be sure that you put it somewhere in your app, and you might even want to tell your app reviewer where that restore purchases button is located at. Let's also look at the is free preview cutoff for property of the page itself. So what you can do here is you can either set this to be none or product 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And if product 1 gets bought, essentially this upsell page gets kicked out of the primary index of the book, so it gets skipped over. If you were to send someone to the book and product 1 was bought, or I'm sorry, send someone to this page and product 1 was already bought, it just gets forwarded to the next page. So it's a good idea to put your buy or restore button on a page like this, so it kind of gets knocked out if bought. You could leave this off though and have a page that has multiple buttons to buy multiple products, in which case that you don't want to set something like this, because if someone bought product 1 but not product 3, then you'd want them to still be able to go back and visit that page one more time. Alright, now let's one more time just look at some of the images, or yeah, we'll look at some of the images that are product dependent. So in my menu, I've got item 4 here, and I've set this to be enabled. Enable if this product bought. So I'm going to put in here product 1, and if product 1 has been bought, then that means this particular image gets shown. Alright, and again, here's where I'm going back to, we now refer to that product as product 1, not full book or whatever the identifier was. Just put in product 1 right there. And then you can also have an alternate image, which is enabled if this product not bought. Alright, so if this product is not bought, if product 1 is not bought, then in that case it overrides this enabled setting and it shows that particular image. So in this case, this was the menu thumbnail for to check out one of the trucks, right? It's got a locked image over top of it, indicating that, oh, you can't get there. Now if you do try to click on it, that's great, because we're going to send you to the upsell page. Okay. Now in that previous example where it was, we showed the image because it was bought, well, we don't need to send them to the upsell page, do we? We're just going to send them to the paid page. All right. And if you were to send someone to an upsell page that had already been bought for that particular product, it's just going to send you forward a page. All right, so it just kind of skips you one up. All right. And that is how in-app purchasing works. If you were to set this to be no, then that is going to enable all of your products. All right, so then they wouldn't be locked up anymore, fully accessible. And you might want to do that for promotional purposes. Say for a week you just give away every product in your book, or you make all of it accessible. And the nice thing about that too, though, is you can set this to be no, and the next time someone installs the app, say after you've switched this back to being yes, there's no record that they've actually purchased any of those things previously, so they would actually have to go and like buy them. All right, hopefully that makes sense. In other words, there's no default key stored for like product 1 that has been purchased previously. All right, so that's about, I think, all we need to discuss with in-app purchases.